What you really want is to have like the most engaged, interested community you can. And if that's 10 people over 1,000, you know, you want those 10 people.
Welcome to the Truly Social Podcast, recorded in our office studio in downtown Toronto, where the raccoons have a better Yelp rating than our public transit system.
Every 2 weeks, we deep dive into the topic of all things social. Unless you think we are talking social media, we are not. We come from the perspective that all things are social, or as I like to say, social is an approach, not a tool. We aim to tackle all the subjects that connect people to people, people to brands, brands to brands, and bots, well, to everything. We're on a mission to get social back on track. And who the heck are we? Well, I'm Tara Hunt.
And I'm Carlos Pacheco, and this is
Truly Social.
Welcome back.
Well, yeah. Welcome back to the Truly Social Podcast. We have a special guest this week in our escape pod.
Yeah.
And would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, Internet World. I'm Hunter MacKinnon, junior strategist over here at Truly Social.
Yes. Hunter's been part of our team for almost a year now.
A year in about 2 weeks.
Yay.
To the day.
Amazing. She came on as our intern. I recognized immediately that she has a lot of raw talent. And the reason that she's sitting with us here today is because, well, she did a bunch of research and wrote a really great piece on our blog all about building a B2B community. Do you want to talk a little bit about
Correction,
that?
how to build a badass
Badass
community.
It's true. It's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah. So we were talking to a client, and their goal was to build a community. They are product based, and because they're so internet heavy, they were like, okay, well, how do you build a community when there's really no need for your community to like meet you in person? And a lot of people struggled with this. So luckily, Tara got us in touch with two great people, from Steph Grieser from Unbounce and Andrea Sayes from ProdPad. And I got the opportunity to interview them about how they built these awesome communities. For instance, Unbounce runs a call to action summit every year.
How many people go to the CTA summit?
That's interesting,
Do you know?
actually. I think they capped it this year, actually. I think it was something around 3,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
It is.
For like an Unbounce, for those of you that don't know out there, they basically do like A/B testing on pages, and they create like sort of landing pages for companies. So it's not like a mass market thing. It's very specifically unique.
So they're capping it this year at 1,000 attendees, actually.
Okay.
Not 3,000, but 1,000 is still.
1,000, yes.
And that is more or less because they want to keep it intimate. They want to keep it very much, they don't want it to turn into South by Southwest, which isn't a bad thing. And Steph was talking about that with me too. She was like, yeah, like, Salesforce, Dreamforce is like insane. Yeah. It's really great. But we talked to our customers, and that's overwhelming for them. Yeah. It's not what works for them. So we want to keep it intimate. We want them to be able to make real connections and not feel intimidated.
Yeah, I think it goes back to sort of one of my theses when it comes to social and communities, is that there is a cap, right? Before things get too rowdy. And, I've been part of many communities that always end up sort of like hitting a certain threshold, and then they implode for some reason, right? And there's always sort of like, different opinions and stuff like that. just clash too much, and they're like, no, there's too many voices. There's too much cacophony about the whole thing.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit. Why would anybody, like, why would a business want to build a community?
So, from my perspective, anyways, having been on the receiving end of this information, what's great for a business to build community, and it's actually really interesting because, like, my boyfriend was writing a paper for class about how to do a digital strategy for, some fictional company. Right. And I was like, well, this is a current product that they have, but what are they doing online? Are they engaging with anyone? it's really well known. It has a great reputation, but where's the reputation coming from? Are they giving back to their community? And we really looked back at it and we were like, yeah, like, you know what? Like, they don't really do a lot for their community and they have all of these fans. They really need to tap into that. That would really benefit them as far as, so in talking to Steph and Andrea, specifically Steph, she was saying, yeah, like we didn't have a sales team for the first, I think she said a couple years. What they had was a really strong community selling their product to each other. And helping their product really develop, getting them in front of the people who were really interested in it and what they could do. And they had a community that was vouching for them at all times, as opposed to a pitch team.
Yeah, well, it's definitely, I mean, this takes to word of mouth marketing, right? Mm-hmm. Word of mouth has always been the strongest form of marketing. Now you can't.
That's why influencers work so well.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is why you can't, like, you can't force word of mouth, but you can definitely do things to foster it. And
yes.
I think,
and you can curate word of mouth a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah, that's where like community comes in really nicely. Is if you have a community that's strong and supportive, and they want to see you grow, and they want to see you succeed because they succeed when you succeed. Then like, that word of mouth is amplified naturally. That way,
absolutely. Right? And you have people who are rooting for you and going out of their way, taking time out of their day to make sure that, you know, your voice is being heard online, which is, you know, invaluable.
Yeah. So number one, I guess then the first reason that you would want to have a B2B community is because like, it increases sales. It creates that
absolutely
word of mouth. Was there something else that came up in your research?
Well, in talking with like Steph and Andrea, what like sort of fleshed itself out from both of them was that, yeah, like it sort of helped them curate their product to be better as well. Oh. They got a lot of feedback online. They had conversations about what people were looking for. And that really sort of gave them like amazing market. Like, you know so much more about who to talk to, what to develop next, what isn't working. And, you know, maybe your whole concept is going to be totally changed. Mm-hmm. We actually spoke with Esteban as well from Hyper. And he sort of said the same thing. He's like, yeah, like we try to curate that feedback into what do we develop next for our customer? What part of the applications aren't working well? What is more important for them? What can give us an edge on other applications our customers are using? How can we integrate better with those applications? That's always incredibly valuable because you can pay people to test your product, I guess, but at the same time, that feedback isn't going to be the same application as someone who has seeked out the solution that you guys are producing, and you can continue to find more solutions that way.
So far, a B2B customer community will help you increase your sales, spreading word of mouth, and then also help with product feedback. That's great. And what we found and what we've talked about on this podcast before is that like so many like customers, so many companies just do not know who their customers are, which
absolutely
is always baffling to me. I'm like, you've been in business for how many years and you don't know who your customers are?
It's really scary when they just have customer numbers.
Yes.
They just have customer number 0050.
Demographics as well, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. They're like between the age of, 28 and 55, lives in this place, makes this much money. And that's sort of that is absolutely the thing that I think is the most important about building a community is you give faces to these people and you get to know them. You get a real sense of what they need, what they want, what's going on in their lives. It can really help you align better with them. You can sort of gear your company to cater really directly to them and make yourself an essential part of their day.
Yeah, so loyalty building, right? And like that's another piece of the marketing puzzle that people always forget is that, especially for a B2B company, attrition, like the customers like leaving and going to another competitive product, it hurts the bottom line.
Absolutely. You've worked so hard and spent quite a bit of money acquiring that customer. And if they don't come back, you probably aren't going to be breaking even.
Yeah. Years ago, I watched a great presentation by another B2B company, FreshBooks here in Toronto. The CEO Mike McDermott was talking about like moving the needle on various different metrics and how that can really help you grow to success. And he said like one of his favorites is like customer lifetime value.
Absolutely.
So like, yeah, if you have a product that has like a one-time payment, then
you need 1 million of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You just need to be continuing to acquire new customers. But in their case, because they're a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription model, the importance for him was to keep people once they get into the trial. So they do a free trial. Once they get in, to like keep them for years, because their lifetime value, if their lifetime value is $100, like he can't spend so much to acquire them. But if their lifetime value is like $10,000 over a 10-year period or whatever, then he can spend a little bit more to acquire them. But then if he loses them before that lifetime value is realized, like it's detrimental. So I would imagine that is a huge part of the customer community as well.
Absolutely. And, you get very lower cost per value, cost per acquisition. If you're, writing and engaging online, obviously, that's one thing that like a lot of customer communities come out of is like genuine organic, which like you can't pay for that.
So so I think we've established that this is a very good strategy for B2B business, is to build a customer community. How do you do it? How did you find out? What did you find out from?
So there's a couple like testaments that I identified. And like I made a pretty graphic. You guys can find it on our website.
Yes, it's trulysocial.ca, and it's under content now.
Absolutely. And some of the biggest things I identified that were like, you kind of need them before you go out is you have to do it. You have to really think about why you're doing it. You have to do it for the people that are your customers right now. Like, obviously it's going to be ultimately for you, but that can't be at the heart of why you guys are getting there.
So what's in it for them?
It has to be what's in it for them. And you have to curate an ultimate experience for them. It has to be, if your customer is email only, that will be very difficult to build a community from. But, we've seen lots of people respond to our daily distraction newsletters. Lots of people in our industry. It can work.
Nice
plug.
Nice plug.
Thanks.
Daily distraction can also be found in that same tab at trulysocial.ca/content, I think.
Yes. As well, obviously what you want to do is make them feel at home and create a home for them. So that would be curating the ultimate experience for them. As well, you have to prize the quality over the quantity. Like Carlos was saying, if you have 1,000 people, it's just cacophony. It's useless. What you really want is to have like the most engaged, interested community you can. And if that's 10 people over 1,000, you want those 10 people as opposed to 1,000 anonymous numbers. Those 10 people will know 10 other awesome people.
Yep.
Well, and you have to, like, one of the things that I always find kind of interesting is, like, clients that come to you and say, yeah, I want to build a community, but we don't have any resources to actually, like, dedicate to this community. That's a big question. So, like, let's talk a little bit about that, Hunter, because I think, like, that's an important piece. The puzzle is like, yeah, this community now. Oh, I'm convinced. I want a community, but yeah, I'm not going to hire like a community manager. I'm not going to.
Well, and they don't recommend that you hire just a community manager. Obviously, you need one to populate the, if you're doing it on some sort of like Ning or something. If you are populating running a community,
there's a whole bunch of tools.
What's
Ning?
Ning.
Oh, Ning is like a community building platform.
Okay. Yeah. It's like an online social page, I think is what they called it. And you build your own.
Yeah, it's been around for a while. There's other versions that you can host on your own site as well that we looked up. There's one called Community that has no vowels in it that we really like.
There's Vanilla Forums.
Vanilla Forums, which I think is Canadian.
What was the like Apex, like the one that Sephora uses, because they have an incredible community
Lithium.
Lithium.
Oh my God, that one is like...
It's the Cadillac of
it's
community
the
forums.
Cadillac.
I would call them more the Ferrari.
The Ferrari, yeah. Because it's like... Yeah, when I sent them an email about talking to them about pricing, they were like, you have to have at least $100,000 a year to spend. And we're like, okay, never mind.
But you don't have to spend $100,000 every year on building a good community.
People use Slack.
People use Slack. ProdPad uses Slack and has a really great engaged community. Andrea was saying she gets a ton of people reaching out saying, you know, I'm not part of the ProdPad like family. Like, I'm not subscribed. Can I join? No. You have to keep the gates closed to a certain extent. They still create community content online, and that's really valuable, but it really is for their customers, and that's what keeps it really engaged. And, you know, that's what makes the community more valuable for them, as well as for their current customers as well. If you have a bunch of random people posting memes in your Slack group, you'll just stop engaging.
If they're really good memes.
If they're really relevant. And that's the thing, right? Is that how do you know if it's going to work? And then you know, especially with Slack, how do you kick them out after? Yeah. It's a little tough. But what is really great about a community and should be really good, like should be the way that you approach a community, is that your whole team is going to be involved in the community. It's not just one person who their job is just exclusively to answer questions, because that means that they have to be an expert in everything about your community, everything about your product, everything about your brand. Basically, that's just impossible. And it puts a lot of pressure and means that there's only one voice coming out of your brand, and that's not really social. What you would ideally do is have one person who would maybe flag anything for a particular person, loop them into conversations where necessary. If you're getting feedback on, you know, development, someone says, why did we develop this? Or why doesn't this work? You flag that. There's a community manager who would flag that for the development team and have the development team engage directly, as opposed to, you know, having one person be like, I will create a ticket and we will do the thing and put it through the Zendesk process, and you know, you might never hear back.
I mean, like, so more of a community host or somebody who's like curating, making sure the conversation is lively and goes forward and appropriate, and like making sure that the community is like more like a health manager kind of thing. And then, but everybody else be part of it. Well, and then at the end of the day, that will ensure as well that you can scale it, because if you have everybody involved, you have your sales team on there, you have your product managers on there, you even, like, ideally you'd have your executive team on there, even just listening to get that feedback on a regular basis.
I think that's really great too, because a lot of things that we see with, you know, only one team talks to the customer. They're the only people who know, and that's not great communication, just plain and simple.
Well, and it often doesn't filter its way up into those big vision meetings, which like becomes a problem because there's a huge disconnect between the path of the product and what the customer needs. So and then you sort of jeopardize those returns, right? Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that's really interesting that I heard from Andrea, of course, is like you can build it in one place, but you won't get everybody in that one place. It still has to be everything.
Right. So if you have Slack, then you probably also want to be available to, I don't know what, like
Quora.
Totally.
You know.
The quote that she has, and I love it so much. I've used it on like every deck. For me, social is not just have a Twitter, have a Facebook. It's be social, be available. It's not putting this block between us and them. So we're everywhere. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Quora, Intercom. We're on Slack. We're on email, of course. But just cutting down on that friction as much as possible is really important.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, like it's
that
just one of
sounds
those
very
like
truly social.
Yep.
that is the truly social of it. And she made a joke about it too. She's like, oh, of course.
Yes, that's why we call ourselves truly social. You can't get away from it. It's like one of those little nuggets that we plant in people's brains.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, you know, and of course, then like, I think we originally approached looking and reaching out to them about the events part of community. Like, it's a big expense. It's a lot of production. Like, we see some brands, like you said, you know, Salesforce doing this. I don't know what they spend.
They ball out on that for sure. But I also think a lot of people get partners involved.
Yeah.
Other sponsors and stuff like that, especially with Salesforce.
And there's HubSpot's inbound, which are inbound, is it?
Yep.
Yeah. Which is like probably 30,000 people that go to that. It's ridiculous. It's actually like, it's to that level of like, overwhelming kind of thing.
Well, that's South by Southwest level. Like,
Like, but they obviously that is obviously grown because of like their community has grown too. And HubSpot's been around for quite a few years. But so what's the like why events? What are the benefits of events? Did you find?
As far as events go, obviously it's beneficial because you can't beat a human voice and a human face, and especially with products that are exclusively online, in which your whole process might require, like for registration and using the product, might never have you interact with a human being.
Right.
That is hugely valuable for them.
All these platforms are very self-serve.
Yes. And which is great and convenient. And that's like your low point of entry. And that's what you want for a product, especially, you know, if it's not $100,000 or something that you're putting away on it at first. You want to make it easy for people to sign up and register and use your product, which usually requires less people. But there's also that whole, like I was saying before, your customers vouching for you and talking to other customers. But the events really give you an opportunity to put those customers out there and tell their stories to each other and have that conversation about how are you using our product? How are you interacting with our brand? Are our services working for you? And letting them sort of share their own stories and make them a hero of their company, of their industry. And, you know, you just so happen to help them get there, which aligns people in a really nice way and gives you a really great reputation. Yeah.
Yeah. I also love, you know, want to add to that is that having your customers come face to face and help one another, like that's like to go back to the benefits quickly. I missed this one, that they come together and help one another be better at what they're doing as well. So, I mean, Google and some of the other big products overuse community, I think, for their customer support in a lot of ways.
It's impossible to get a hold of Google.
It's getting a little bit better, but in general, like that's what their community gathering is like. Customers are helping other customers answer questions and troubleshoot, which helps them scale their like customer support. However, it is kind of good to have that like slightly scaled customer support, because you can have people in your customer community that are way more advanced in their use of the tool than the new people that come in. And it's nice to have that kind of peer take you through that process rather than just be like technical, like
or very sort of corporate sort of like we can't say this, you can't say about this and all that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, but we've also seen a recent example somebody showed us, like where they had like one of their enthusiastic customers speaking a little bit too authoritatively about the product, like I am the person that you can come to talk about this sort of thing. So there's a balance.
Yeah. And obviously, like in any community, that's why you need the manager, right?
Yeah.
But that's the great thing about an event. You can sort of curate the discussion.
Yeah.
Which can be really great and sort of bring up smaller discussions that are happening that might be more important to people. Those things that, you know, you saw one comment on Facebook about, hey, why doesn't your product do this? You can make a whole panel on that and really address that, because it's a question more people are probably having. They just didn't ask of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I guess to summarize, you need a a customer community because it helps with your sales, helps with developing a better product. It reduces attrition and increases loyalty, and of course can help you with your customer support at the end of the day, how to build it, just creating some sort of platform for people to come together.
Creating a home for them. We were calling it a clubhouse,
yes.
Which is really great. You want them to all have somewhere to hang out and chat and feel like there's no sort of limit on what they can talk about, because that will give people a great opportunity to discuss more organically. And, you know, Andrea was saying from at PropPad in their Slack group, they have one that's just like announcements and like fun stuff from their community, being like, you know, my son just graduated from high school.
Oh, yeah.
Or like,
personal.
I just moved. It's like people are really engaged with each other and they want to have
personal relationship.
They want to have a personal relationship after, you know, a year or two of talking to each other online. You kind of want to meet people in real life sometimes.
So bringing, creating ways for bringing your customers together and having them bond and interact and that sort of thing, as well as probably providing, the whole curation element, make sure that it's always healthy. And then I would think like providing value and some sort of extra added value to being part of that community. And anything else that you think is worth noting when it comes to building a badass B2B customer community?
Really, I think like it just needs, you can't think about it as a tack on to your current strategy. And that's like definitely something that, it looks great. You're like, yeah, like a community. It's great. All we have to do is like sign up for Slack. It's not that it's not that simple, and it's not that it's more crazy complicated, but you shouldn't think about it as, you know, just this one thing we're going to do, whatever. It really needs to be a big part of your strategy. And if not, the full strategy is to build a community that is engaged and welcoming and totally engaged for your customers, because that will give you a lot of return, but you need to do everything right, basically, because you can lose that trust really quickly and you can create a place that is not that welcoming and people won't engage. And if people don't engage, that's not a community.
Well, I think that's a really great place to end the discussion this week. If you have any more questions, you want to read Hunter's awesome article on her research, go to trulysocial.ca. It's under the contents section under the blog. And you can also tweet her at
Big Pink Turd.
Best Twitter name ever.
It's my Twitter name. It's my Snapchat. It's my Instagram. I have a Tumblr account. Like, that's everything.
And the story behind it is a subject for a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
But
it would be a great podcast about like usernames.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. So until next time, thank you for being with us, Hunter.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Hunter.
All right, it's time once again for our Truly Social Heroes, where we bring forward some of the best examples of people, brands, and everything in between who are actually doing social right. I just want to start out by saying mental health is on my mind right now. I think it's on a lot of people's minds because we lost two really amazing human beings, creative human beings that we all look up to this week. Kate Spade. And then this morning we heard about, as we're recording this, we heard about Anthony Bourdain. And so for me, I wanted to talk about a truly social hero who was already, before I was thinking about mental health, a huge hero of mine, but I also got to witness her at C2 Montreal a few weeks ago, and that is Chelsea Manning. And Chelsea Manning, for those of you who have lived under a rock, was the military leak that came forward a bunch of years ago and showed basically that the government is spying on us, along with a few others, but also then came out as transgendered after she left the military, ended up going to jail, and then being represented by the ACLU, brought out of jail, but then went really amazingly public with her passion in her fight to Twitter and other platforms where she continues to speak out on the topics that she was basically jailed for. And it's not only that she's using these platforms to make a difference in the world, but she gets so much hate daily. And I didn't, we don't always see the backlash against people and the hate that's out there online. But if you ever read through her comments, but I tweeted about her being my highlight at C2 Montreal, and all of a sudden I had the trolls responding and really bashing her and saying that she'll never be a woman and all of these terrible things. And then I think a day later, we found out that she had a bit of a breakdown and tried to commit suicide. Thankfully, it was thwarted and she had help and she had people that were there for her. But, a few weeks later, we see that Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain are also, riddled with the same affliction. You think in the public eye, they're so strong, they're so brave, but they're human just like everybody else. So I want to say thank you to Chelsea for standing up for people, for what's right, even in the face of all of the hate that you encounter. And I don't know where you get the strength, but I so appreciate everything that you do. You are a truly social hero to me.
So my choice for truly social hero is the League of Awkward Unicorns, which is a podcast by Deanna Zant, which is a good friend of Tara's that she introduced me to many years ago, and Alice Bradley. And it's a podcast about mental illness. And it's sort of it's really funny because both Tara and I sort of choose our heroes separately. We don't really talk about what we're saying. And the timing sort of came together with this one. Deanna is an author. She's an activist. She's an awesome human being. I don't know Alice myself, but she's an editor at Lifehacker. And they both, have this awesome podcast called The League of Awkward Unicorns where they talk back and forth about the issues they are dealing with mental illness and, from a daily perspective, their ups and their downs. And it's just a great podcast to listen to. They don't upload super regularly, but, when they do, it's often hilarious and really honest. So yeah, they're my truly social heroes this week.
Awesome. Yeah. And they also have, I know that Deanna is a wonderful illustrator, and she's illustrated many of her moments of depression as well. And I think that sort of content that's put out there helps others feel less alone. So that's great. Hunter, our special guest this week.
So in light of these two social heroes, of course, keeping it maybe a little bit lighter, but something that I heard these two young girls going to middle school on the subway, and they were talking about Liza and David's breakup on YouTube. I thought these were friends of theirs. I have never heard of Liza Koshy and David Dobrik, but that just blew my mind that this couple, YouTube power couple, Liza Koshy and David Dobrik, filmed their breakup. And I guess they broke up a little bit before they filmed it, but it blew up, of course. 17 million people have watched it, probably more by now, but it's just insane. It is really strong of them to go out and, talk to their fans about what's going on. And that takes a lot of guts that I don't have. To have a public breakup is insane.
So what's the backstory? They had been YouTubing together for a while?
They had been YouTubers and YouTubing together, vlogging their lives together. And to live your life in the public eye in the first place is just really crazy. And working with PWL, building YouTube channels and talking about personality online all the time, it's really brave. It's really hard to stand in front of the camera every day and talk about your life. It's obviously rewarding. That community that you build there is really, really engaged. More people, especially young people, feel that they have a connection and trust YouTubers more than, you know, a regular politician, maybe. Probably justifiably, maybe not so always, but yeah, like it was just the craziest social news that I heard literally on the subway that I think is the most organic of socials, is hearing younger people talk about what's trending. Yeah. I thought these were friends of theirs. It was just they're so engaged.
Right. Yeah, they talk
the
talk
power
about them
of
in the
YouTube.
first name.
Yeah. Well, I think it was my and again, same thing. I found a video and I was like, who the hell are these kids? And I know you
is weird.
And it's like I know as someone who works on YouTube, I was sort of like, I've never heard of them, and they have like tens of millions of subscribers. Like, what? How the hell does this happen?
The internet is a crazy place.
Yeah. And I actually really like how like super raw and honest they were about like it's not the usual she cheated on me or whatever type of situation. It's just like, yeah, I'm in this space and I can't focus on a relationship and all that sort of stuff, and I don't know how I feel. And they definitely sound like they're friends, and it's not a new thing for YouTube couples to break up. It tends to happen a lot, actually, or it seems to. But basically,
maybe it's just the videos.
Yeah, it's just, obviously the video you see more. The drama is always about the breakup as to the ones staying together. So obviously, it's sort of skewed that way. But it's just interesting to see that how well they sort of like took it with like a smile and smile. Yeah. The tears of laughter and sadness at the same time, right? So anyways, that was
like
awesome.
A+ content, guys.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely within the wheelhouse of that. You know, I think the big lesson for me that I see in all of this is like you can't judge your own behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. And we keep seeing this lesson over and over and over again over the years, that a lot of what people are putting online is like selecting the good moments and not showing our human vulnerability, our anxieties, our depression, our awkward moments, our breakups, that sort of thing. We're only showing the good stuff, and are afraid to show the struggles, the bad stuff. I try very hard myself to show both sides of it, but it's hard. You're worried about people judging you or thinking less.
Yeah. And like most people who are spending more than 15 hours a day or more or less are more vulnerable, like statistically, to be exposed to depression, ADHD, impulsives, like paranoia and loneliness. It's genuinely something we need to check in ourselves.
Yeah. So social platforms, you need to take this stuff seriously, because I really do think it's funny, these platforms are put into place to try to keep us from being isolated, but in a way isolate us even more. True. Oh, that's a sad thing, Dan.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you guys.
Have a good one. So we really hope you enjoyed this week's topic.
If you did enjoy it, we'd love to hear from you. So tweet us at Truly Social, and I'm at Miss Rogue, ROGUE.
And I'm at Carlos Pacheco _CO. So CarlosPache_CO.
And
I'm at Big Pink Turd.
Yeah, send us your own insights. Tell us, what your experience is with this topic. So, for instance, around building a kick-ass B2B community, if you have some lessons of your own that you would like to share. Of course, if you did not enjoy it at all, please, do tell us that too. We do really love feedback.
Yes, and on whatever podcatcher you are using, iTunes, Google Play, please go in and give us a rating, put a comment, let us know what you think.
And we're also looking for guests to join us in these future conversations. So if you have something that you would like to get off your chest, or maybe an alternative viewpoint to what we're saying, we would love to argue with you on here. Please drop us a line, and you can email us at podcast@trulysocial.ca.
Until next time,
TTYS.